Okay, I'm Shirley here, and let me start with this, all right? 안녕하세요. 처음 뵙겠습니다.
Right.
And of course, hajimemashite. Dozo yoroshiku. Okay, and of course, very good morning to all of you here this morning. As you know, our topic today is Japan and South Korea. Is there room for outsiders, right? And actually, I was thinking maybe I should, conduct this session in Japanese and Korean language, and after all, I'm very proficient with it.
All right.
You believe me, right?
Let's do it right now.
Okay, but of course not for the benefit of the rest. I think I should conduct this in English, all right? Now, anyway, the organizer actually has given me a very interesting task today. As you can see, with my panelists here today, we are very, very diverse. We have people from the government agency, the advisor, the policy makers here from Japan, Dr. Yuko. And we have Saemin. Saemin is actually very interesting. He's a Korean, and but he is working in the Japanese market. He's the VC right now, and of course, I think he's no stranger to many Singaporeans here, because he said that now his full-time job is almost public speaking rather than being as a VC.
I know, I'm very confused. So
He's confused. Never mind. We'll make him more confused, after today. And Saemin is interesting because actually I have one missing person in the panelists. I think he drank too much last night. He couldn't get up this morning. So he said that because he's a Korean and he's also a Japanese, so he will take over the other Korean panelists. So he will double up as two speakers, all right, representing Korea as well as Japan. And of course, we have Charlie Yongbin from Korea. He is an innovator, from SK Telecoms.
Yes.
So we're going to have a very interesting and kind of like, rojak, if you know what is rojak, is a local salad of sorts, where we have different personalities and different roles, that's coming up. So please ask as many questions as you want, to make the job easier. But for a start, let me say this, in the most recent Bloomberg Innovation Index report, South Korea and Japan reign supreme and lead the world in innovation. And it's a known fact that South Korea is a leading innovator for electronics and telecoms products, and Japan's supremacy in high-tech innovations. Now, both Korea and Japan are two giant markets that we all cannot ignore. In fact, over and over again, when I talk to people, the startups or the enterprises, other than being here in Singapore as a gateway, as you have heard, earlier from the panelists earlier. But then their next top hit list, of getting out in Asia is actually Korea and Japan. Many of them actually have the myth, of thinking that is Korea and Japan really a closed market, as many thought it is? And I think they are very interested to know how to crack this market. So I think today we have a great team of panelists here, which I'm sure they will be able to share and review, some of the secrets of entering into the market. So let me start with the government and also the advisors, first. I learned that, recently I actually learned that the support for the startups in Korea, as an example, that the government has carried out a series of schemes such as injection of about close to $3.2 billion in startups and as well in the creative economy. So I'm sure Japan also would have similar kind of schemes, in developing innovation and also attracting foreign talents. So perhaps, can we have Dr. Yuko to share with us? But of course, if there isn't, please tell us. If you think that Japan or Korea is a self-serving nation, you don't need outsiders, let us know so that we know what to do. Oh, yes.
Let's call me Yuko, just Yuko. I'm not representing the Japanese government today, but first I will try to describe where we are today, and then how we will try to make place for startup company. Not only Japanese, but nationality doesn't matter. in this sense. As you mentioned already, ranking about innovation, Japan expressed the strengthness of the technology by the past. But when we see in the coming years, even today, we see the limits of taking competition based only on technologies. We have very strong technology basis. It's by the past we have accumulated, and we have very strong companies, big companies, because they were successful to create inside the company ecosystem of innovation. And it was closed, kind of black boxes. Today, we are facing the phenomena of global value chain and how to position within global value chain, not only in terms of a company, but in terms of your expertise. So newcomer may come in, and facing these phenomena, big companies are still long, in terms of speed, and in terms of challenging new things, it's not so good. So we need to have a game changer within Japanese context. It's the feeling expressed by Japanese big companies. And coming back to the government issues, my task is now, since the arrival of Abe governments, are pushing ahead economic growth. By what? Two is key is innovation. Innovation, not only technological innovation, but making a set of existing technology bases transformed a company with more new ideas, new design, and new, really more soft. And we have to have some game changer to make this change. And we tried really to review where we were in terms innovation ecosystem within Japanese context. And then we tried to really make sure that we are trying to promote startup phenomena. It's not so new because since 2001, we promoted, we call that policy, university startup companies, 1,000 in coming years. We were successful to create, but if you have only startup companies alone, you are losing. And it was not accompanied by a very consolidated ecosystem. In particular, big company was not so ready to really work together with the startup company. Today, it's better shape because they are seeking for that. And knowing that we do not have enough pools of startup company within Japanese context, they're seeking abroad. So you have a place, and also within the Japanese traditional culture, we have very difficult to change the mindset. We need to have external elements coming within Japanese context to make sure that something will happen. And after the session about Singapore, it's really different dimension. We are not copying Silicon Valley phenomena. We are not copying Singapore phenomena. We are not copying European Union approaches. We need to find ourselves, how we can change ourselves, taking account of the past history. So my role is really prepare the ground to facilitate those who try to really take first step for startup company, easier in terms of regulation, in terms of accompanying with a subsidy, and also to make place for the creating new spaces for that. So that's our approaches, and we can go ahead. For example, Rakuten. I remember I was professor at the Hokkaido University, and 10 years ago, I had my master's degree students. His colleagues, they were very successful to get good job in the big companies. He was alone. He was most entrepreneurial student of my generation. And he said, okay, finally I got a job at Rakuten. 10 years ago, nobody knows about Rakuten. He said, okay, he seems so sad that he is not in a big company. But finally, after 10 years, the situation completely changed. So we have a space for change, and we need really entrepreneurial people coming in Japan. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yuko. Okay, Peter, well, not Peter, Saemin, can you put on the Korean hat right now and share with us, is there opportunities for us, what are some of the government schemes, to attract foreign talents, if there is, or it is a self-serving nation?
That is a really polarizing choice I have to make here in front of a lot of people. Is everyone awake? Say hi. Hi. Thank God. Okay. So, I mean, in terms of the schemes and the grants that governments like Korea and Japan actually give to entrepreneurs, it's not necessarily based on attracting foreign talent. And this is kind of a very big divide between Singapore and the other Asian countries, in that we have enough of a big demographic and a social mass where we want to encourage our existing demographic to actually do startups and do innovation. And in that perspective, yes, there will be small slits of people who are indeed foreigners and expats who want to do business there, but it's not necessarily aimed at attracting foreign talent. And that kind of perspective is where kind of Singapore excels and is able to kind of bring in such a big amount of critical mass for people who are great product managers and engineers and leaders.
Okay, thank you. Now, I want to remind our audience here, please feel free to ask questions. You can post your questions in Pidgin. I think they're going to flash. Yep, just follow what's that on the screen, and then you can just ask any questions, and I will try to moderate from here. Okay, let's move the focus to Charlie Yongbin from Korea. As you know, Charlie, as I understand that SK Telecom work with a lot of startups, and could you share with us, as the largest telco in Korea,
yes,
what area of innovation most interests you and your company, and how do you innovate in an ever-changing digital landscape?
Yeah, actually Shirley introduced me as an innovator, but I'm a practitioner. I'm a software program developer in my company. I'm working in the division of new business development area. So we are much more focused on location intelligence service with beacon hardware, and also we are working in the area of education technologies. Also, we are developing smart apps, combination between a smart application on your phone with hardware items like this. Also, we are dealing with healthcare platforms. Actually, we are working with many startups in Korea. And so, actually, the criteria we choose the startup which is working with is how their technology is unique and how many patent or IPR do they have. So in that case, we invest. Now, so let me take an example. Actually, this is a smart beam projector. We believe that it is the smallest beam projector in the world. Actually, we developed this beam projector 3 years ago. So at first, we just draw the image of the beam projector, and we just made a mock-up with paper. And we started to look for startups to manufacture this one. And we finally found one company because they have core technologies to make this one. And then we invest money on that company, and we made a success. Actually, since now, we sold this product more than 200,000 already overseas.
Okay, well done. Okay, now let's move, our focus to Saemin, who is the VC. Now, of course, Saemin, we know, we all remember Rakuten did a sensational deal, right, of 200 million with Vicky. I think, that really excited especially the Singaporean startups here. Now, do you see this repeating again in the near horizon? And where will you put your money? And are there any type of companies that you are ready to invest right now? Perhaps you can share with us here.
Sure. I mean, when we invested in Vicky, we didn't invest in the company because necessarily the origins were Southeast Asian. It's because, again, kind of relating to my original comment, the company had a really diverse mix of technologies and people and culture that enabled them to permeate into different geographies and economies very quickly and very easily. That's one of the main reasons why we kind of acquired the company. And it being a Southeast Asian company was a happy coincidence because, again, development costs here were low. There was abundant talent for coding and engineering. In terms of what Rakuten Venture is interested in for the mid to short term, again, we look at companies, but we actually look at very traditional verticals. I mean, we invested in Carousel I think about almost 2 years ago now, and now it's kind of the dominant C2C marketplace platform in Singapore, and it's growing very aggressively around Southeast Asia. We invested in it not because it looked cool, but because it was traditional, and it was core to the needs of users, mainly the consumers. We look at core needs, and then we extrapolate what will the next generation or what will the next cyclic cycle require of that demographic. So we looked at ad technology. We looked at how carrier billing will affect the overall liquidity market in different developing markets. We looked at, not even only in Southeast Asia, but we looked at how the marketplace model will change and be really needed because more and more people are becoming intellectual, being able to make smart code. So in Seattle, we invested in this company. It's a marketplace, but it's for algorithms. So you can buy, sell, rent algorithms because we've came to realize that a bunch of people were able to make really smart code and algorithms, but at the same time, they weren't able to actually supply them to the right customers. So if you look at how Rakuten Venture has invested in Southeast Asia, we actually invest very globally in the perspective of how can we actually affect change to a larger developer ecosystem in a positive way.
Okay, thank you. Now, I have a question here coming up, and a lot of people is asking that question. And the question is, what do you think is the factors why outsider companies can't make into the market? As I said, I think people always think that, Korean and Japan, the market is very closed. After all, you already have great innovators. So, and it seems like a multitask, to enter into your market. So can you share with us, why is that so? And perhaps that could be in the past and it's changing. So, maybe Yuko, you want to share with us on this?
From outside, Japan is some kind of black box in some sense. On rational, on way to do business, and even Japanese language is really felt like a barrier. We can see two sides. One is formal regulatory issues, another one more informal, psychological, and more cultural. One side, we try to really make easier in terms of regulation, welcoming foreign investors and those who want to create companies, facilitating, because they have strict regulation. It's almost impossible to create for foreigner, create a company. Now, if you have a partner, and it's much easier than before. So we make efforts making load of the game more easier. But once you arrive, you want to create your companies, all the formality is in Japanese. Really, it's a barrier. And we see we have to change the mindset in the terms of promoting English, like in Singapore, having a common language. It's almost a necessity in some sense, if you want to open the door. We're making effort, but still limiting much to do with the administrative and all formalities.
So the trick is to get someone that can speak Japanese language that will help?
it's easier for you if you speak Japanese.
Okay.
You can use translate. Yeah.
I mean, to
You have
expand this in terms of more of a competitive, microeconomical perspective, there's an issue here that happens with Japan and Korea at the same time. If you have a successful company in both countries, the instinctual response from those companies is not to actually go overseas, but actually is to burrow deeper into the existing demographic and geography. So people will actually make a smaller moat and castle strategy, and that if you have a successful e-commerce company in Japan, you will make a successful travel company in Japan. You'll make a successful online bank in Japan. That factor of more and more entrenched companies burrowing deeper into the existing ecosystem makes external penetration much more harder. So, and actually that's one of the reasons why even local players trying to get into their local markets is hard, because that airtight ecosystem makes it very, very hard for these companies to actually grow in a meaningful way. So if you look at more and more companies right now that are becoming startups and have been blessed with good funding, their instinctual response is to move outside of the demographics and outside of the geographies of Japan and Korea, because they think, oh, great, this market is taken over by Kakao. Oh, great, this market is taken over by Line. Now I should just move overseas and try to focus on those demographics. So if you look at it at a competitive standpoint, not only culture, but also if you are able to nail down the cultural part, in which case you have a hard time localizing your product outside of that country, you will be actually locked in a very, very death grip battle with the existing entrenched players, present company included,
Okay. Charlie, you have any further tips to add?
Actually, I don't know about the investment, but actually, I think the startup who want to start their business in Korea, actually they don't need to speak Korean. I mean, we much pay attention to the core technologies, and it will be good if they are invested by SoftBank, Rakuten Ventures. Actually, there is some evidence of which we decide to invest on that company.
Okay, good. Can you share with us, what are some of the common mistakes that foreign startups, trying to get into Japan or Korea, that has made a common mistakes, and they should not have done that. It could be, I don't know. Maybe you know of anything? I mean, is there something that is taboo that we should not do, as a foreigner, entering into a new market? And, perhaps maybe from a VC perspective, what do you see? And you say, if you see that, straight away you turn off. You're not even interested.
Yeah, I can tell you, not only a VC perspective, but when I was in Google, and when I saw a lot of overseas companies actually trying to enter Korea, is that they try to solve 80% of their problems with money or marketing, and it just didn't work. You had Google, which in the late 2008s to 2011s, and if you looked at the down portals and the Naver portals, their whole idea of UI and UX was very different, to the point of being wrong for the Korean public. And what they try to do is they try to solve that problem by giving very, very generous, advertising partnerships to any of the partners that will work with them. It worked figuratively for the time being, but unless you're able to actually localize and get down to the level of being right for those demographics, it was a very hard thing to actually pull off, and they didn't. So if I look at a lot of the companies that are trying to enter Korea and become sustainable and maintain sustainable, they've really not done a good job of localizing or being able to approach the demographic in an organic way. Now, one company that has been really good at this is actually mobile gaming companies. They've been excellent at localization. If you look at how much Supercell poured into Korea in terms of marketing budget and localization and community management costs, it'll make your head spin. But if you look at their ROI, it's like 10, 20x of what they actually put in. So mindsets are definitely changing, but the initial onset of that misconception really discourages other foreign companies because of social proofing.
Okay.
I may mention two aspects. One, for example, we have to take long time to have a really in-depth dialogue between companies. That means you are arriving in Japan and just making business with a Japanese establishment, their politics, but to be really accepted as such, you need to invest in transaction cost, and it's the time. So the speed is not the same. But in the opposite side, I see as a factor of change coming from outside, from Japanese government perspective. We want to really transform Japanese practice into more really accurate. So it's not just say it's no mistake, but please come in and try to make dialogue, but really not imposing yourself, but at the same time bringing your ideas, your practice into Japanese establishment in the way that we can transform the practice in Japan.
So be patient.
Yeah,
right?
be patient, but be persistent.
Persistent. Okay.
Continue to.
So you knock on the door, the guy
no.
say no. The next day you turn out again and put yourself in the.
Yeah.
Does that turn off you guys? You know, I mean, in Singapore, if we said no to a startup, you know, I said, oh, sorry, your fund, you know, my fund is not ready to invest in your company, and then 1 month later, you know, the same person come after you again and over again. I think it kind of like turned off for us here, you know. But I'm not sure in Korea, in Japan, it seems like you guys are more susceptible to that.
Yeah, but once it is done, it's very easy.
Okay.
But the beginning is not so.
All right.
Takes time.
Okay. Now we have another question that's coming up that says, how best to engage with Japanese innovators for a non-Japanese, and in the same way, how best to engage with Korean innovators? So maybe Yeonbin, you might want to, you know, share that with us. How best to engage with you guys?
Oh, tough question.
Speak your language first.
Actually,
Bayu Sochu?
Actually, we are based on their capabilities. So if you are competent with your technologies, we can work together. So actually, we have a branch in Singapore here to look for startups. So I mean, actually, we are very eager to find partnership with potent potential startups.
Okay.
So you can speak up at the conferences like this, and so you expose yourself as an innovator yourself, and then we will come to you.
Does SK Telecom invest outside of Korea?
Yes. Many companies on Silicon Valley. Also, we are looking for some startups in Asia. Actually, we operate some investment funds within company.
I see. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts?
I'm welcoming your ideas about that, because we have some very entrepreneurial companies, but they're seeking for partnership to be enhanced by the others' experiences outside. And still, for the moment, they are not so visible on the scene. Rakuten case is exceptional. And we would like to have really kind of platform sharing experiences, because it's easiest way to learn from each other rather than government setting up some new courses, something like that. So that's why I'm very welcome if you are really ready to come in and really work with the Japanese startup companies, in particular those who are from spin-off from universities. I know that we have some forum that they are gathering together, and why not to make a link with you?
Okay, we are running out of time, and but I have one final question. Oh, but this one a lot of people want to know. Can you give me that 1 minute? Can you very quickly share with us which areas are good to invest in Japan or Korea? Which areas are good to invest in Japan? I have a lot of votes. This is the highest vote question, so I must give time to this question.
Just
Pick one.
just from my side.
Yeah.
We have big companies based on technology. They are seeking for the ideas, how to gather with the services more soft side of technology. You have a place for that. And why not work with them and bringing ideas and then having a new added value to their technology. That's it.
Saemin, anything to add to this?
I mean, if it depends on what you as an investor are looking for. The growth and kind of a little bit more the positive volatility in Japan and in Korea are coming from the hardware tech side of the marketplace. If you just look at how much, there's a lot of interplay between fabrication and prefabrication for semiconductors, but definitely the semiconductor and the screens, the display markets are much more prone to a positive impact in the near future just because everyone's going to hold more mobile phones.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.